Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work? I'm your host, Pinaki.
And I'm your host, Chris. And today our guest is our producer, Bree Bartos.
Hi. Thank you guys for having me again.
So, in our last episode, we introduced Bree, and you got to know her a little bit. So, if you haven't listened to it, I recommend going to check it out. Today, we're going to do something brand new at Human at Work. We're going to be reading and reacting to Reddit stories. Bree, how does this work?
Yes. So I will be reading a Reddit story to you guys that I picked out. Today, the theme is getting laid off. It is unfortunately something that is happening all across countless industries. We're seeing it every day in the news. It's something that I experienced at the beginning of the year. And so I have some fresh experience with that. There's just a lot of people going to Reddit right now to talk about their frustrations of being laid off and ask for advice. And I thought that we could take some time to read some of them.
Let's go.
All right. So, this first one that I picked out is from the subreddit Career Guidance, and it was posted only a week ago and is titled, I'm being laid off, but the company wants me to train my replacements. What should I do? To keep this short, I've been working in the IT field for over 10 years and was just told that I would be laid off in 2 weeks. The kicker is that they want me to train my replacements before I go. I plan to continue my career path in IT, so I don't want to burn bridges. But at the same time, I'm not going to be used, then tossed aside like garbage. So, my question is, how do I approach this professionally? Should I train them, coast, or just leave? I'm the only one that can do my job because most of the information is intellectual. And I really believe upper management did not pay attention to who they were laying off before it happened, and they're now trying to scramble.
Wow, that's a doozy. That's a real doozy, Bree. I don't know about you, Pinaki, but when I heard you read that post, Bree, there's a couple of things that stand out for me. So one is, um, it sounds like they're writing this post just after they were
Mhm.
being told that they were laid off. And what I picked up a lot of was that there's clearly an emotional reaction to all of this, right? So, I was hearing about not wanting to burn bridges and not wanting to feel like they're going to be used and then tossed aside like garbage. One of the things that I always think about with these kind of things is how is the organization, what kind of efforts are they making to share this life-changing communication with their employees, where their ability to achieve financial security now is being undermined. And this idea of asking them to do more work after they just told them, we're going to take away your livelihood, feels very self-serving from an organizational perspective, and maybe not really thinking through about, what kind of state will this person be in. And I think it's just very clear that there could have been a better way to have handled this from the organizational standpoint. But at the same time, I think it's really important that the person that posted this give themselves a little bit of time before they respond to, let their emotions subside just a little bit so that they're dealing with this in the most professional possible way.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think. I do agree with you, Chris, that this is a very emotional hit, right? Especially when we define ourselves by our jobs and just being kind of tossed out like, the way you did. And, not sure exactly how this was communicated to you and whatnot, because that could have made it worse. And a lot of times it's difficult for people to communicate layoffs because one thing is for sure, no one wants to be in a layoff situation, not you, nor your manager, nor your kind of upper management for the most part. I would recommend thinking about when you're in this situation is, can you negotiate your package, right? Like, hey, I'm willing to do this training, but can I negotiate this package? There's also a thing like, all right, you know what? This is a tough blow, and I'm just going to need a way to process it. Can I get it, a week off, and then I'll come back and train for 2 weeks, and then I'm out, or a paid week off. So think about like how you could use this as a negotiation to see if you could kind of make yourself a little bit more whole.
It is a really good idea to negotiate. And I love the idea of throwing in a week off paid just to like give yourself that mental space to process because they're asking something of you after laying you off. The ball's in your
Yeah.
court. They need
Yeah,
you right now.
they do.
And I mean, if they're asking, that implies that you can say no.
Exactly. You do have the power right now. And even by, the question, like, should I, train them? Should I just leave? Should I coast? Right. You have those options, and those are powerful options at your disposal. How can we use those options so everyone wins?
You know, ultimately, and Brie, I remember in the last episode, you courageously shared your experience, both you and your husband being laid off at the same time. And that obviously has severe ramifications in terms of your financial security in the moment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think that too often organizations, they go to a place of, okay, you know what, from a compliance perspective, what is the minimum package that we have to give this person? How much notice do we need to give them? And I don't think that there's any real attention paid in the majority of situations to, what is the most emotionally intelligent and empathetic way that we can usher this person through
Mhm.
this traumatic experience, really. And, it doesn't always mean having to have all the different tools available, but sometimes it just means having a leader that understands the emotional gravity of the situation and is able to navigate the conversation in a way so that you're left off feeling at least somewhat at peace with understanding the reality of why this decision had to be made. And I just really reacted, Brie, when that portion of it where I was talking about I'm not going to be used and then tossed aside like garbage. And for me, it just feels like this is still very raw
Hmm.
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
person.
Yep, it is. What's your take, Bree?
Whenever I'm very torn because when I read it, I immediately I got laid off in April, and so, like, the feelings, like, and the emotions are still very fresh in my mind, so when I read it, like, all of that comes up again. I'm like, "Yeah, give them the middle finger and tell them, 'No, I'm not trading them.'" And, like, I think about I did not get a 2 weeks notice of being laid off, and I will be honest, I don't know how I would show up the next day,
Hmm.
in those 2 weeks after being laid off. I got laid off at the end of the day, and they told me to pack my stuff and go. While I was sobbing, they asked for all the social media passwords.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, so, like, and I didn't in the moment, I didn't wanna give them those. Like, I was just so upset and
Yeah.
overwhelmed, and so I'm reading the comments and, some people, they do agree to request an incentive in order to do that. So if you want me to stay for 2 weeks and you want me to train people, then a few extra weeks of severance or something like that should be negotiated.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, a lot of people are saying, it is an IT and it very much is a industry where you want to have positive recommendations and you want to have people that you've worked for who can say good things about you. And so it is very important not to burn bridges. But again, then there's that part of me is like, well, they burnt the bridge. They laid me off. And I know it's not personal, but like I'm human and I can't help but
Hmm.
take it
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah. It's really important to kind of like let it sink in a little bit because I think it's natural
Mhm.
for us to go into our primal modes
Yeah.
at this point.
And I don't know. I do think it is one where they're obviously you only get what they provide you with. There's so much context that we're missing.
Hmm.
And I one thing that stuck out to me was that they believe upper management did not pay attention to who they were laying off before it happened. And that tells me that how they communicated the layoffs probably wasn't great.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of seems like there's a lot to this story. And I don't blame this person for not wanting to train their replacements. Like, it sucks
Agreed.
to be like, hey, you got to leave. But before you go, train this person who probably is getting paid less than you now. And that's probably why we let you go. It's hard to sit there
Yeah.
and want to teach them their new job that you just got laid off for
Yeah.
doing. It's very
Yeah. It's hard.
difficult. And I don't know how I would personally handle that situation, but I do know I'd be crying the whole
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a very tricky situation, and it's unfortunate that so many people are finding themselves in similar spots right now.
It is. And so our hearts go out to you all as well. Like, don't get it twisted or wrong. Like, your emotions and what you feel and that anger is real and valid and necessary. I
Mhm.
think in what we want to do throughout this is to go from this crap moment to, okay, I got this. And that takes time and it takes practice and it takes just attention and mindfulness to do so.
It's important for organizations to recognize what this moment emotionally means for people.
Hmm.
So I think just recognizing the fact that it might take some time before someone can recover from this type of news. And so to ask them to do something that only really benefits the organization, but doesn't really benefit the employee anymore, I think is something that would be difficult for even the best of us. I do feel like as we're having this conversation, that's something that every organization should really think about, which is what is the best way to manage this.
Something that Chris said that just sparked something in me was that, like I was thinking that, a lot of managers and stuff like that, they don't have good practice in laying off people because it's not something that, you do all the time. And hopefully you don't do it all the time and you shouldn't do it all the time. Because if you're really good at laying off people, you're like, wait a minute. But the thing is, I guess right now organizations are going through this and many organizations are. So it might be an interesting time to think about what are the best practices in laying off people. And if someone who's listening or any executive, any practitioner, consultant has a good framework on laying off folks, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to talk about it and put some amplification on that because it looks like we need it. It looks like we need better ways to lay off people because it looks like it's not stopping.
Yeah, unfortunately, the leadership the subreddit on Reddit is full of, managers talking about how hard of a time this is for them right now, navigating all of these layoffs. A lot of people are like, I'm looking at one post now that's first time firing someone. Like, it's
Hmm.
someone feeling guilty about knowing I have to lay off an employee. Like, there's a lot of just sadness around it from both sides. But like, as an employee who got laid off, it's very hard in the moment to
Hmm.
sympathize with the management. Like, in my meeting, I
Surely.
had the HR manager and my husband's manager in there, and they just kept saying, like, "This is the most difficult thing we've ever done in our career." And I was just there like, "Oh, I have no income."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like,
Like who are you talking to?
it's
You're still getting
really
paid. Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
it's hard as, like, in that moment to your emotions are so big that you don't really it's hard to have compassion even for the person in that moment, and
Hmm.
I do feel bad for the management that has to, navigate laying people off when it's not their choice and, like, it's not up to them, it's coming from higher ups, and unfortunately, it's just something they have to do, and I my heart goes out to them too because emotionally, that cannot be easy.
Absolutely. And in this kind of like industry, I've heard like HR managers having to like lay off people and having traumatic days, and months later they're getting laid off.
Yeah.
Earlier I said, if there's any good practices on laying off people, please share them. Well, I kind of thought about it, and like, even at Local Wisdom when we had to do it, we offered like resume reviews. We offered, interview training. We were reaching out to our network saying that, hey, we have folks available who are looking. Unfortunately, this is what's happening. But we gave them ample notice as well. So that's one of the things that came with it and whatnot. But we tried our best to figure out how not just lay off, but offboard and kind of like help them land in a better place next time around.
Right. And I think too, I mean, hopefully this organization didn't do it on the Friday, which just absolutely, destroys your weekend. But even if they did it on a Monday, you're giving this person no time to grieve on
Hmm.
something that is a big moment, right? And
Yeah.
so it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow morning, Tuesday, and you can start training the new hire.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's a real misfire in terms of what that emotional experience would feel like. And ultimately, I think people so often forget this is also a very humiliating experience,
Hmm.
right? It feels like it's a reflection on the person in some way, whether it's warranted or not, right? So I just think for a lot of reasons that there's definitely better ways for organizations to think about the impact of laying people off and thinking about more imaginative ways to be better at doing this. I definitely think that we'll probably revisit on some level this topic again in future episodes. But I think at the core of all of this is really the emotional side of this experience, right? And how so many organizations have really lost sight of that part of the connection and just only viewing this as a business decision, which I'm sure it is. But the idea has to be, what kind of potential psychological injury can happen as
Mhm.
a result of this. And so I think it's definitely a tough situation. And I think I'm sure we'll have more conversations like this in the future.
Well,
Definitely. Yeah.
everybody, welcome to Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work Between the Seasons.